Most fitness and nutrition coaches are never going to scale to $10,000+ months in revenue because they don't know how to properly leverage sales when talking to their leads and prospects who want to burn fat or gain lean muscle. Instead, they get on a call and they start coaching them or sharing common experiences and reminding people of their past failures. So what I want to do today is share my 9 universal sales rules so you can start converting more clients. Even if you're starting at 0, this leads me to my first rule. Don't bro me before you know me. When I was first diagnosed with cancer 9 years ago, I had a 50-50 shot at life. When my oncologist, Dr. Hemphill, walked into the examination room, he didn't say, "Hey Nick, I'm so excited to speak to you today about your painful problem and your cancer diagnosis. How you doing, bro? What's going on? You see all those people out there in the chemo ward floor? Don't worry about them. They're just like you. You're gonna be just fine." He didn't do that. He walked into the room in the mindset of a world-class doctor. Calm, assertive, and confident. You're gonna hear me use those phrases. That needs to be your mantra in sales. Calm, assertive, and confident. This helps align your state. Your state is your physiology, what you're focusing on, and the language and meaning of the interaction with your lead and prospect. We're dealing with one of the most painful problems a human being can experience. When your lead and prospect wakes up, they get naked, they get into the bathroom to take a shower in the morning. They don't say to themselves, "Wow, I wish I had more accountability. I wish I had more motivation." They say to themselves, "I'm fat and I hate the way that I look naked." This leads them to some of the most neurotic and painful and negative emotions that a human being can feel, which is shame, apathy, guilt. They say to themselves, "I don't love myself, so others aren't going to love me. Therefore, I'm not worthy." And shame is the most negative experience that a human being can feel. There is no more negative emotion. So just like Dr. Hemphill, if he walked into the room super excited and effervescent and Mr. Go-Lucky and big bubbly personality, I was gonna think he was a quack. I had other options. I didn't have to do chemo. I didn't have to poison myself, but he allowed me to feel certainty based upon how he walked in the room. And after he went through my pain and my goals and the pathology, I was bawling. I was crying because I was going to die, or I thought I was going to die. And he walks out of the room and I'm just losing it. The door cracks open. He sticks his head in and he goes, "Hey kid, you're gonna live." That's what I needed. I needed that certainty. His calm, assertive, confident nature, it aligned my state, so I believed that I could achieve the outcome of surviving. Which leads me to rule number 2. Always neutralize the frame when you start the introduction of your call. Now, I've been in sales for 20 years and I only help fitness and nutrition coaches. I've funnel hacked all your favorite sales gurus and coaches out there. I've read all of their scripts. And with the exception of a few of them, all of them are teaching you to hard pre-frame in the beginning of your calls. A hard pre-frame sounds like, "Hey John, we're gonna go over your goals, what you've been doing, what's preventing you from getting your goals. I'll go over my offer and my plan to fix it. If I think it's a good idea and you think it's a good idea, then I will offer and invite you into my program, but at the end of the call, I need a definite yes or no." Does that sound fair? And when you say that, you sound like every other salesperson in the world. If you sound like, look like, and feel like a salesperson, well then you must be a salesperson. And when you remind someone of being a salesperson, they're going to have movie reels or images of their head of a used car salesman. And always remember, it is ethically and morally allowed, socially acceptable to lie to salespeople. And if you're being lied to or you're being given surface level answers to the questions that you're asking them, then they're going to expect a surface level result with a very inexpensive price. Instead, you want to neutralize the frame. We're still going to be an authority. We're still going to be an expert, but in the beginning of the call, our posturing is going to be inferior and we're going to invite them to change so we don't put them into fight or flight. When you sound like a salesperson, you put the lead and prospect into fight or flight. Now let's think about this. Your mind is a 3-million-year-old computer designed to keep you alive, not designed to keep you happy. So pound for pound, negative emotions are more powerful than positive emotions. And when you put them into fight or flight, they're going to see the negative. Their brain is going to shut down the creative part and the resources needed for creativity, because there's no need to paint a beautiful picture or write a beautiful song while you're running from your life. And so they're not going to be able to actually access the creative part of their mind. And always remember, you can't close a closed door. You have to open the door first, and then you can close them. You have to get the lead and prospect to open up to you, and then you can close them. But if they're closed off and they're guarded, you will not be able to close them, and they will give you surface level answers. So instead, we want to neutralize the frame and use inferior language that invites them to change. What that sounds like is this: John, this call, it's pretty basic. It's more for us to learn exactly what you're doing to be in the best health and shape of your life, and honestly to make sure I'm even the right coach to help you get there. From there, we can go over my 3-step program that I've designed to get all of my clients amazing results that you saw in the pre-call guide. And from there, if you think it's a good idea, we could talk about possible next steps and what it would look like to possibly work together. Does that sound fair? Awesome. Now, John, what I'd love to begin with is what you put on your application when you booked a call. You're currently struggling to lose 20 to 30 pounds. Your energy is low and you're not as productive as a father as you'd like to be. I just want to ask you a few questions revolving around that, get your insight, and from there, we can tailor the rest of the call on what interests you. From there, now we can dig into pain in the mindset of a world-class doctor. We have added structure and a frame to the call. We know exactly what we're going to talk about. I used inferior language this call. It's pretty basic. If you think it's a good idea, if you'd like, we can possibly talk about next steps. All of this, you'll watch the tension just go down. You'll watch them become calm. We dig into the pain in a world-class doctor, and we move forward. And the third rule is always dig into the pain in the mindset of a world-class doctor. Back to Dr. Hemphill, my oncologist analogy. When Dr. Hemphill walked in, he didn't ask me about my day and how my kids were and what's my dog's name and how was your 4th of July. He got in, was assertive, calm, and confident, and dug into the pain. Nick, you have cancer. It looks like you've had this tumor for about 4 months. Nick, if you did not find this cancer when you did, you would have had a 9% chance at living. This is the pain that is currently causing you. If you do not fix it, this is the impact of your life. Here's most likely the root cause of your cancer. Then he got clarity of my goals, and he was able to offer a pathology and a way forward. If he did not dig into the pain, if he did not come in calm, assertive, confident, and dig into the pain, the duration of the pain, the impact of the pain, and the root cause of the pain, and he was talking about some other things that were totally not relevant to why I was there, I might have not believed him. I might have done something else. I could have gone somewhere else and chose another route, which would not have given me as high of a probability to survive as the one that Dr. Hemphill was giving me. And so remember, always, always, always get into the call and dig into pain first after you neutralize the frame. Don't start with goals, start with the pain. We have to start with the pain because this is the emotional driver. And in NLP, neuro-linguistics programming, it teaches us people are more willing to run away from pain than they are an opportunity gained. And we need to create the emotional driver for them to make a decision, for them to take action to get the result that they want. That is an algorithm for success. Emotions drive decisions, decisions drive actions, actions drive results. This is 100% of the time. No human being can have a thought or make a decision without an emotion behind it. And we want to create the emotional driver because people only change their life when the current state of pain exceeds the perceived pain of change. And we start with pain and we create the emotional driver, we're more likely to get into the transformational level of selling, which gets us transformational level answers, which makes them believe they need a transformational level result, which when you pitch your high ticket offer, it's going to be a lot more relevant to solving their pain than something that's like $50 to $99 a month. Bringing us to rule number 4, never share common experiences or coach people after asking them a question. The sequence should always look like this. You ask a question, you listen to their answer, you label or mirror what you heard or summarize what you heard, then you ask the next question. This is called using Socratic questioning. Socrates, one of the most brilliant minds of all time, he did not want to teach his students what to do and you must do this and you have to think this way. Rather, he wanted to ask bite-sized questions that were easily answered, that waterfalled and cascaded into each other to an epiphanic or an aha moment. So the light bulb went off for them instead of, this is my ideology, this is the way that you must do it. When people self-quantify value for themselves, they're more likely to adhere and comply to your plans and protocols and get the result, and that's what you want, so you can build the back end of the acquisition of your business through increasing lifetime value and referral. Now, when we get into the qualification and engagement phase, we're gonna start with pain. If you want all of the questions to ask, make sure you pick up my book, 6 Steps to Close One. This is gonna give you what I call the 10 gems of sales. The link is below in the description. You can download it for free. You're gonna get all of my 6 steps to close one, all of my scripts, objections, my resources, everything that we talk about today, all of my philosophy and ideologies are inside this book. You can download it for free. But when we're getting the 10 gems of sales, which are 10 questions so you don't pitch into a smokescreen, you get absolute clarity and evidence criteria of all of these important parts that help prevent objections from happening. You're gonna use Socratic questioning, small bite-sized answers. You're not gonna share common experiences. You're not going to coach them. You're gonna stay calm, assertive, confident, and you're going to use mirrors and labels and bridges to keep the conversation going and flowing naturally without feeling the need to coach them and you need to start doing weight resistance training and you need to do weekly check-ins and you need to do cardio and you need to do this and that. Just reminding them of their past failures. The other major thing that I see coaches do, and this is a massive red flag, is that the lead in the prospect tells you something very painful and then you want to pat them on the back. Hey, it's okay. You know, I had to lose 100 pounds and I was able to do it. You just effectively one-up this person. So we want to use labels after we ask questions and get evidence criteria of anything that is a nominalization. Now, I can't spell nominalization, but it's a big fancy word that means words that don't mean much. If I say to you, you mean everything to me. What does everything mean? It doesn't mean anything. It lacks evidence criteria. If the lead prospect says, you know, I've just been really frustrated. John, when you say frustrated, how do you mean exactly? You know, I just want to feel loved. Well, when you say loved, could you elaborate on that a bit? And we want to get more clarity of any human emotion word that lacks clarity. The word comfortable. My level of comfort is different than your level of comfort. If they say, I just want to be comfortable in my clothes, I want them to elaborate on that. So that's getting clarity of nominalizations. The next is using what is called labels. It seems like, it looks like, it feels like, it sounds like. And we label what we hear. It's a very short summarization, which then triggers them to either say, yes, you're correct, and then we ask the next question, or they'll continue to tell us more information. The next thing that you want to do after asking a question, you want to kind of use all of these together, not just labels the whole time, but you want to add in silence. Just a couple clicks. Click, click. You ask a question, they answer, add some silence. This is called a power pause. It will trigger the lead and prospect sometimes to continue to give you more information. So by saying nothing, you have gotten them to tell you more. And one of the most important parts of sales is being a likable listener. We'll get into this in a bit and the power of being a likable listener, but when you can use getting clarity and evidence criteria of nominalization, adding in pauses, using mirrors and labels, and using lastly bridges, which are just like, yes, okay, got it. So John, tell me, how long has that problem been going on for? When you can combine all of those during your engagement or the qualifications part of your sales process, you will become a likable listener and you won't feel the need to coach or share common experiences. Which brings me to rule number 5, which is we are always going to create a gap. We are going to expand the gap before we transition into our offer. So after the neutralize the frame intro, we're gonna dig into pain in the mindset of a world-class doctor. That's pain, duration of pain, impact of pain, root cause of pain. Then we'll get into the obstacles of what they've tried to do to solve this. So that is point A. Point B is going to be possibility or their goals. We're going to get clarity of where they would like to be 6 to 12 to 24 months from now. How would that affect you, not just personally, but how would that also affect you professionally? Get clarity of their goals. So now we have a gap, right? We have a polarity. Point A, hell no to this life. Point B, hell yes to this life. Heaven and hell. We now have a gap. But if in their mind that gap is only this big, after we go through our qualification phase and then we go into our pitch, they're going to think that they can solve this problem on their own. And John, do you mind if I challenge you on that for a second? If it was just information or access to more information that you needed, you would have figured this out by now. What you truly need is application of knowledge. Now that's a whole different conversation, but the point here is that we have to expand the gap over time. Point A, pain. Point B, possibility. And after we ask possibility, the goals question, which is one of our last questions, the next and immediate question is going to be COI, cost of inaction. Most people know what ROI is, return on your investment. You spend $1,000, you'll get a 10x, a $10,000 return on your investment. But most people have no idea or get clarity of cost of inaction. And cost of inaction has to be asked because, again, we want to expand the gap so that we make them understand if they don't solve this problem a year, 3 years, 5 years down the road, it's going to affect their life dramatically. And so what that sounds like is, John, God forbid, another year, 3 years, 5 years down the road, this problem doesn't go solved or it gets worse. How's that personally going to impact not just your life, but the lives of the ones that you love? And John, are you willing to settle for that? Why do you feel that way though? And we ask that in a concerned tonality so the questions hit their emotional target. Once we've created the gap, we've expanded the gap, we'll then get into our next rule, which is rule number 6, always summarize what you heard before asking permission to pitch. No one likes to be pitched to unsolicited. So we're always gonna ask permission to pitch, but before we ask permission to pitch, we wanna summarize everything that we talked about. Now, when I was a general manager and I was managing 40 to 50 sales associates a day, my door was always open, right? The GM's like, hey, the door's always open, always come on. Like, proverbially it was always open, but I always left my door open. And my sales associates would come in, I had a lot to do, I'm typing, I'm on my phone, I'm writing emails, I'm solving problems. And my sales associates would come in, they'd ask me a question, I'd be typing. I was listening to what they said. I cared about what they said, but I was busy, right? I was getting shit done. And so I'd answer their question, and some of the feedback I would get is that my sales associates would say, Nick, sometimes you make me feel like I'm not heard. And I was so confused by this because I was answering the question, I was listening, I cared about them, but they still didn't feel heard. I was giving them the right answers, they were closing more deals, they were being successful, but they still weren't being heard. So I invested in learning and leadership. One of my favorite leadership books of all time is by John C. Maxwell, Developing the Leader Within 2.0. And in that book, he states that you have to become a likable listener in leadership. And it's the same thing for sales. Sales is leadership. And so you want to listen with your ears, I hear what you're saying. You want to listen with your eyes, I see what you're saying. You want to listen with your heart, I feel what you're saying. And you want to listen with your attention, I care about what you're saying. And that's one of the things I wasn't doing as a general manager. I wasn't putting down the phone, didn't stop writing the email, I didn't stop doing my work and just look at them, see them, hear them, feel them, and care for them, but most importantly, listen with my attention. And this is very powerful in sales. If you're on Zoom or you're selling in person, you never want to be distracted. Give that person your full attention because becoming a likable listener is one of the most important parts of sales. They did a massive study of consumers, voting consumers on the #1 problem with sales professionals, and it was they talk too much. So you want to summarize everything that you talked about from the engagement or qualification phase before you ask permission to pitch. Now in your summarization, you're going to be a real great human being. You're going to thank them for showing up on a call. You're going to thank them for taking action. You're going to thank them for being vulnerable and answering questions to what seems like pretty much a stranger. And then you're going to summarize all their pain points, the losses of luxuries from those pain points, their goals, get them to agree, and then ask permission to pitch and go into your offer. Again, if you need those exact scripts, make sure you go into the description below, download the 6 steps to close one. That whole entire script is in there for you to become a likable listener and properly transition. Guys, I'm here to tell you, most sales coaches, most sales gurus, most business coaches don't even know to do this, and they don't even teach this. Which leads me to rule number 7. Never pitch the work, the services, or the deliverables of your unique opportunity or your offer. You're just going to remind them of their past failures and their experiences. By the time people will get to you, you're not their first coach. They've tried in-person training. They tried keto, carnivore, fasted, Jenny Craig, MLM, Kardashian detox tea, GLP-1s. Maybe they thought about weight loss surgery. They've done everything under the sun. but you will be their last coach. And this reminds me of The Value Equation by Alex Hormozi. I was blessed for 2 years to work under acquisition.com as a portfolio company that I worked for and get to learn from some of the best. And when I read $100 million offers and I learned the value equation, I cannot unsee it in sales or marketing or social media. I see it everywhere. And what we want to do is help our lead and prospect see the value. At the end of the day, you're charging thousands of dollars to get them said result, usually over 6 to 12 months. So what we want to do is we want to remind them that your offer speaks to their dream outcome, that their likelihood of achievement is 100%, which is certainty, and that you will help get them results quicker, faster, and easier with less effort and sacrifice, key phrase, than anything that they've tried before. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be work. It doesn't mean that they're not going to have to sacrifice short-term gratification for the long-term betterment of themselves, but it will be quicker, faster, easier than anything that they have tried in the past. Now, what I recommend is always doing Zoom calls because you have 100% of your communication ability. You have physiology, you have tonality, and you have the words coming out of your mouth. And what we want to do is create a visual representation of our offer because 64% of people are visual learners. I'm reminded last year this time, I went onto a sales call for a coach who had a solution to a very painful problem that I had. And I knew going into that call that it was $25,000 for a year of coaching and I was liquid to cash and I wanted the solution. But I didn't get on the call with the face of the company. I got on a call with a sales professional. 1, it was on the phone. 2, there was no visual representation of the offer. 3, the lead and the prospect pitched all the work and all the things that I've already done. She didn't differentiate the offer from all the things that I've done or all the other companies out there. And I ended up not buying because I left the call more confused than when I actually jumped on the call. And so during your Zoom calls, again, in my 6 steps to close one, in the description, download it. I teach you how to do this. I give you the free resource to do this in Canva to create these templates. But you want to come up with a naming convention for your offer that is relative to your ideal client avatar. We're not going to call this the hourglass body blueprint if we're helping busy male executives be ripped and lean. Likewise, we're not going to call this the rip, shredded, and bulk method if we're helping moms lose stubborn belly fat. And then we're going to have a 3-step framework. Remember, there's 3 types of work: guesswork, hard work, and a framework. A framework is defined as a systemized process that gets you and your clients a consistent result, but is customized specifically for their life and their lifestyle. Step 1 is always going to be some kind of restoration. Now, I'm not here to tell you how to coach, but typically most people are under eating and you can't immediately put them into a caloric deficit. So we'll call this like metabolic restoration. Once we restore, we then put them into fat loss or lean muscle acceleration, could be hormone optimization acceleration, whatever result that you're getting your clients. But once we have foundational restoration and we get them healthy and in best health and shape of their life, then we can hyper accelerate the result, again, quicker, faster, and easier than anything that they've tried before. And lastly, there needs to be lifestyle integration. Most people don't have weight loss problems. In fact, the average female in America diets about 165 times in her lifetime. That's about 5 times for 33 years every single year. So most people don't have weight loss problems because here's the deal, guys. Restrictive diets, they work. You put someone in a caloric deficit, they're going to do it. The problem is it's not sustainable long term. So they end up gaining all the weight back. This is yo-yo dieting, the chronic dieting cycle. Most people have weight maintenance problems. They don't know how to keep the weight off. So one of the best value adds to your offer is lifestyle integration, teaching people how to do this for the rest of their life. When you're able to create a visual representation of your offer, you're going to be more consistent in your pitch. Your lead and your prospect's going to understand exactly what you're saying because remember, they don't love this stuff. You love this stuff. You love eating healthy. You love going to the gym. You love doing cardio, but they hate it. So when we can help them visually understand, and remember, 64% of the general population are visual learners, we're going to educate the buyer, and an educated buyer is so much easier to close. And this brings me right into rule number 8. After you give the price for your high-ticket nutrition and fitness coaching program, you're gonna shut up. Don't say a word. When I first got started in sales 20 years ago, my first job was in Hollywood, California. After graduating from college, I was building and designing recording studios for some very high profile people. And I remember putting together my first $100,000 recording studio for a big name artist. And at that time, we had to go back to the cash register with the quote and get the person to pay. And I'm trembling, right? As a poor farm boy my whole entire life, I had never spent $100,000 or even seen $100,000 in my life. But I had my quote in hand. The client walks into the front, We go to pay for it, and I say, Mr. Client, after taxes and a discount that I bundled together for you, it's gonna be $100,000. And I shut up. And sure as shit, he pulled out his black Amex card, he handed it to the cashier, and he paid for it, and I could not believe it. But my sales manager, God rest his soul, Mark Speedwack, had taught me that a week earlier, and I had watched him do it many times. Gave the price, and then silence. And I want you to do the same thing. Now, bonus pro tip here. I'm gonna give you the best closing question of all time for your nutrition and fitness high-ticking coaching offer. And that is this. And remember guys, tonality is everything. You could say the right things, you could read the script, but say it in the wrong tonality, and the question will not hit the emotional target. And adding space and silence is really important. John, if I could help you lose the 30 to 40 pounds you said you've been struggling to lose for the last 15 years, and I was able to help you be more productive, not just as a husband, but as a father and at work, and you start making more money. And lastly, you were very open and honest with me because you're not in love with what you see in the mirror. Some of the intimacy and the romance in your marriage has started to dry up. If I could help you solve all of those things in the next 6 to 12 months, would that be worth X amount of dollars to you? Silence. They're going to say yes, because by the time they get to you, they've already tried everything under the sun. After they say yes, your follow-up question is going to be this. And why do you feel that way though? Not think, feel. And why do you feel that way though, John? Now John self-quantifies the value of moving forward himself. To me, he tells me why it's worth X amount of dollars. And then from there, I simply ask, how would you like to proceed moving forward? He might say, let's get signed up. He might ask some buying intention questions, at which point we will answer those questions directly, but tie them to their wins and their outcomes specifically for their life, so they understand any of the work or the services or the deliverables that you're going to give them in your coaching program will specifically help them, not some generic person, but them reach their goals. Which leads me to the last rule, rule number 9. Never ask why after getting an objection. The other day, I wanted to get a new deck. If you guys don't know much about me, at the end of a long, hard day's work, I like to be on my back deck next to my fire pit, watching my dogs and my kids play in my backyard. But my deck, it needs a little bit of a facelift. And I just bought a whole bunch of new patio furniture, and the patio furniture looks amazing, but the deck doesn't look so great. And because I was scrolling through buying new deck and patio furniture, of course I got pixeled by marketing companies to get a new deck. Long story short, I go on a landing page, I opt in, I schedule a call for a sales professional to come out. She comes out, she's very personable, very nice, very friendly, does all the measurements, goes through the whole spiel, has a visual representation. I'm sitting out in the front porch going through her offer slides and her testimonials and going through the materials and why all of these things are so great. And then she gets to the price. Guys, I don't have a big deck, but the cost of the deck, when she gave it, this is what she did. She goes, the deck is $45,000. You can pay this way, or we could do financing. Which one do you want to do? And $45,000, like I'm thinking maybe $10,000, $15,000 for a deck, but $45,000, I could build a pool for $100 and add some real equity to my house. And I said, I don't want to do any of them. And she says, why? And that is a defensive question. See, she wasn't trained on how to properly handle and diffuse and disarm objections. She got defensive, she said why. That made me defensive, and I said, because that cost way too much money and it's not going to give me any kind of equity on my home. I don't think that's reasonable. She then says, well, here's my card. Go get some more quotes and find one cheaper than mine, and she leaves. Sales lost forever. I will never, ever hire that company. So the golden rule, when you get any objection, never ask why, because that's going to get you a defensive answer. You're going to step 1, summarize what you heard. Step 2, validate the fear. And step 3, establish the need for the program. Never try to disarm or diffuse an objection without establishing the need for the program. Otherwise, it's going to feel super icky. So what that sounds like is this. John, what I'm hearing is you want to speak to your wife, Kathy, so she feels a part of the decision-making process. By the way, I don't want anyone sleeping on the couch. I'm on your team here. But, hypothetical question, if Kathy was here right now and the answer was yes, would this even be the right program for you? John, what I'm hearing is this a little bit out of the monthly budget, and totally get it. We've never been the cheapest game in town because we pack our program full of value to damn near guarantee our clients' results. A hypothetical question, if we could find the funding, if we could find the money, so you could be in the best health and shape of your life and lose the 30 pounds, be more productive, and reestablish some of the spark in your relationship, would this even be the right program for you? Summarize what I heard, validate the fear, hey, it's not that big of a deal, and then establish the need for the program. From there, download my book, 6 Steps to Close One. I'll give you all of the scripts needed to properly diffuse and disarm these objections from happening. Now, everything that I just taught you is in the spirit of preventing objections from happening. Handling and overcoming objections is amateur hour in sales. Pre-handling objections and trying to prevent objections is high-level sales. It takes time, takes tonality, takes mastering your script, it takes emotional intelligence, it takes emotional stability, but once you're able to combine all of these things, you can build the life that you want in sales. And I'm gonna leave you with this point. You might be thinking, Nick, I don't need to practice sales because I don't have the leads. Well, what if I gave you 1,000 leads, 500 leads, 1,000 leads today, but you did not know how to book those leads onto a sales call and you didn't know how to close them? What good are those leads? Doesn't it make more sense to learn the setting processes and the sales processes so you can start to scrape some of the cream off your hidden hot network, people that would already buy from you? And then when you turn on the faucet and you fill up the top of your funnel, you then know how to maximize the leads that you're getting. See, most people put the cart before the horse. They think they need to learn content creation and lead gen and all of these things when what you really need to focus on is the most important part of your business. I'm here to tell you, sales is the most important part of your business. Let me put that another way. Influence, communication, and persuasion. This is very Tony Robbins of me, but he says the quality of your life is dependent on the quality of your relationships. And the quality of your relationships is dependent on the quality of communication in those relationships. Overcoming cancer, I had to learn how to not just re-communicate with the world, all the people I hurt and all of my regrets, but also how I communicate with myself. Sales is communication. You already have a ton of people who would already buy from you if you knew the systems and the processes to actually get them to self-quantify the value of moving forward for themselves. So I hope you take these 9 rules. I hope you start implementing them on your next sales call and changing the life of the person you're speaking to. The greatest gift that I could ever give you is the same gift that I'm about to give this person. His name was Jeff Black. He was the nutrition coach that changed my life forever post-cancer. I want to give you the same gift I just gave him. Being and naming the person as the person that changed their life. Allowing you to be named in someone else's testimonial as the person that changed their life forever. But I can't help you do that if you can't sign up your next client.